told them, right? Because that's what they were going to give me on my trade.
Ready to roll.
My new trade.
Ready?
That's going to give me 12. I put on Craig's 1450. Had a lot of people.
Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, please.
Regular meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, July 16, 2018, 7 p.m. Heidrich.
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Ohesky.
Aye.
Patke.
Aye.
Pettit.
Here.
Scornia. Here. Sullentrup.
Here.
Waterman.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Will all the council members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the council meeting dated July 2nd, 2018? Heidrich.
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Ohesky.
Yes.
Patke.
Yes.
Pettit.
Yes.
Scornia. Yes. Sullentrup.
Yes.
Waterman.
Yes. Having read the minutes, are there any comments or questions?
If not, I'll make a motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mohesky, seconded by Holtmeyer, to approve the minutes from our last meeting dated July 2nd, 2018. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the minutes. Thank you.
Approval and adjustment of agenda, including consent agenda. You have the City Collector's Report, March 2018, City Investment Report, March 2018, Change Order 1 and pay request for McFry Excavating, Inc., landfill site prep, fireworks display, Washington Town and Country Fair, and we've been asked to postpone item 2D, the proclamation to the fire chief.
Okay, are there any questions or comments regarding any of those items on the consent agenda?
No, make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mohesky, seconded by Heidrich, to approve the items on the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the items. Thank you.
Priority items, presentation from Boomslick Regional Planning Commission.
This evening we have Chad Egan, and looks like Hubie's here, and Bill Strotman to make a presentation to the council regarding a plan that they
Or
have
a
put together.
transportation
Project. So anyway, get the microphone,
We had a
Bill.
major transportation investment analysis done, started in the 80s, knowing, and one of the things that was on that report, and they studied all the way from into Warren County, all the way down to 44. And in fact, we've got the headline on the newspaper for, what was it, 1995? And the headline was, MoDOT to study Highway 47 from Highway 70 to 44. All right, that was the headline. So this has been going on. This study has been out there. You know, the major transportation, that was a big deal. I served on it. A number of people in here probably served on it to get this document done and on file. We've used it now. One of the things that was holding back the actual doing something with it was the fact that they had to determine where the new bridge was going to be. Well, that study actually preferred that, or said that the new bridge should go right next to the other one. So without this study done in this 1995, 98, we wouldn't have had the study already done when they were ready to, when we finally found some money and was going to build the bridge, because we had it identified. There was an eastern and a western and a central right next to the other one. Well, we already had it done. We had a major transportation investment analysis done. Therefore, the bridge project went forward. But part of the whole process of looking at this whole Highway 47 corridor was to take it from one end to the other. And everything was predicated on where the bridge was going to go. Well, now, you know, we've kind of forgotten what we were doing back then, but now we know where the bridge is going to go, and it's coming in. So now we got another situation. If it floods here in the spring of the year and gets up to, what is it, 35 feet? Whatever it is, we can't get across it because we're going to be in a flood. It's in a flood area. So now's the time. We're going to make an application. There's new monies that has come out. The government when we were doing the grants and whatever for the new bridge, we were short $10 million. Well, they called it a Tiger Grant. Well, Tiger Grant is what we got from the government, the $10 million to finish the bridge and have the funding to build the bridge that we're now building, that we're just going to finish. Well, the Tiger Grant has been replaced with what they call build grants. Okay, it just came out, $1.5 billion from the federal government. So one of the specific, it's designed to help the rural areas, a lot of it. In fact, it designates a certain percentage of the monies has to be spent in rural areas. And they give preference to projects that had a past Tiger Grant. So, and it's rural. So the area that we're talking about hasn't changed since 20 years ago, 25 years ago, south or north of the river. The bottomland hasn't changed. So the study, our estimation, is still valid. How can you change? We know it floods. We've got the times it's been flooding. We've got a list of the times it flooded, how high it got, how many days we were sitting here without being able to cross it. And it looks like to us is the time to make the application and ask for the money. We're a small community, small rural community. We fit the criteria for this new grant. So, Chad?
Mayor, members of the board, we're here tonight just to ask for a letter of support.
Clear.
Ask for a letter of support on behalf of the city. Franklin County has also pledged their support to the project. We have been going to the Washington Area Transportation Committee meetings. You have those monthly here, and it was a recommendation from that committee to go to the full board for approval for a support letter for this application. And this would be an application from Warren County, since the project is officially in Warren County, but it will be connecting St. Charles and Franklin counties at the new bridge.
Yeah. So in the past, we've always dealt with East-West Gateway, but Warren County is Boots Lick Regional, a different metropolitan planning organization. So this is what's kind of different with this one. And this is how, and they're even a smaller, you know, we all know they're a smaller MPO than, of course, East-West Gateway. So again, we're a smaller entity. The need has been there for, we can go back 25, 30 years. We can go back to as far as you want to go back. The need is there to get it out of the floodplain.
Bill, I don't want to get, I just don't want to assume that everybody knows what we're talking about. Chad, can you go ahead and give us a scope of exactly what the project is and what you're applying for and the funding?
Sure. The project is an application to the Department of Transportation. It's a build grant, and it will be for approximately $35 million. The $25 million will be the official maximum for the build for the federal government. However, it does stipulate in rural areas where there is great need that they could go and fund it 100%. So that's what we are applying for at this point in time.
And we're going to be using that money to...
to connect the bridge to Highway 94.
And get it out of the
Out of the floodplain.
And so that would be across the bridge and straight ahead, basically.
Yes.
Basically
Up
a
to
reroute.
90
so
a
that you
reroute
don't
of
have to
94.
rely on Highway 47.
Major transportation investment analysis that was done
Right.
had a local preferred option, or the locally preferred option, and that was to take it across the, get across the bridge, and then actually go to 94, and then eventually go over to T. So that's the way this thing was written
And that's the
30 years ago.
route that you are trying to get funded now, right?
I think we'd like to get the process started. Now, whether that is exactly where it goes, you know, they may choose to, or if they acknowledge the grant and like the grant application and whatever, they could maybe raise Highway 47 to the Delphi, so it wouldn't be, it would take it out of the floodplain. But then you got Dutso to deal with. How are you going to get around Dutso? Again, there's lots of questions, lots of, the whole premise is to get our name, get it out there.
Sure.
And take a shot at it. I mean, we got nothing to lose, as far as I can see. The timing is everything. A bridge is going to open. You know, that was the big problem, why this thing couldn't go forward. We had ideas that the bridge could go 2 or 3 miles to the east or the west of our current bridge when this study was being done. So
Well, after all the money invested in the bridge, you wouldn't want it to have to not be there
Well,
when the water came
I
up.
think
so
it's-
be
There's no
accessible.
question that it fits the timing and whatever. So that's what we were asking for. Not to change the subject, but I went to a meeting, Sandy, on your advice, there's a new funding proposal for transportation. We've been asking for this from the powers that be and transportation people. When are you going to come out and give us some idea of what we need going forward with transportation? The plan that they're coming out with, that you'll all become aware of, the funding mechanism is 10 cents a gallon, but it's going to be on gasoline and diesel, all right? It's going to be phased in, again, this is according to the preliminary plans. It'll be phased in over 4 years, so you're talking about 2.5 cents a year, up to where 4 years from now, it'll be 10 cents a gallon. Okay, that 10 cents then, and the monies before that, that 10 cents then will be divided between 70% to the state, 15% to the counties, and 15% to the cities. So you see what they're going to do. They're going to make this thing so that you got to get grassroots support for something like this. Communities are going to be able to look at these numbers and say, wow, you mean to tell me that we could get X number of dollars if this thing passes and have it available? Just give you some numbers based on just some of the things that, if this thing, once the full 10 cents is in place 4 years from now, they expect it to generate $412 million a year, okay? Of that 412,000, the state would keep 70%, 288. Cities would get 61,800,000, and the counties would get 61,800,000. So based on those numbers, Washington, once again, once the full thing was in place, would receive up to $220,000 a year of taxes to be used for transportation. The county would receive, Franklin County would receive, hold on a second, $1,200,000 every year. So that's how they're doing it. They're going to share it back with the communities to be spent in cities and towns, counties, because they're as strapped for money as MoDOT is.
Right.
So everybody, the thinking is that everybody's going to win on this proposition. We'll see what happens. They're in the stage where they're doing some of the analysis on what people would pay or what people will accept. They did some studies that said that people won't pay the 10 cents up front, but they're willing to do it. Percentage-wise, they will do the 2.5 cents a year for 4 years.
So that's to be on the November ballot, correct?
Yes, it will
On
be
the
on the
November.
November ballot. That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So it solves a bunch of transportation issues at the state, county, and local levels. I mean, they base the city share is based on population. So population of Washington as opposed to the population of the state of Missouri. That's how we will divide that up. The county division is a little bit different. Half of the funds are based on a ratio, and this is it's kind of wild, is the road mileage. The road mileage bears to the total county road mileage, the percentage of unincorporated areas of the state. Now, that's
That sounds hard.
it sounds hard to, I'm sure that's real simple.
We'll just take the
minus
stuff
C.
for Missouri,
Right.
for Washington.
Anyway, and the other half is credited to the county based on the ratio of its rural land valuation bears to the rural land valuation of the entire state. So I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you.
We'll
get
let
the
somebody else
valuation.
figure that out.
Doesn't make any
So
difference.
anyway,
Uh,
so
it's
getting
gonna be
back
split.
to our, do we need a letter? Are you looking for a letter or an endorsement, or what are you looking for?
Yes, we're
tonight?
looking for a letter of support, and we could send some documentation on the details of the application, if the board would approve that, to send it to the administrator.
We can
for
go
a
ahead and
letter.
provide a letter. I think what we're looking for is council's blessing
bless, yeah.
of a letter of support.
I make a motion that we send a letter of support.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Scornia, to send a letter of support. Do we address it to Boone Slick Regional,
The
Yes,
U.S.
sounds
Department
like
of
we-
Transportation.
U.S. Department of Transportation? Okay. And you need it, it's soon, right?
Thursday is the deadline.
Yeah, that's the other thing. This thing's got a real sharp fuse on this, $1.5 billion. And it's been out for, what, a
Amazing.
month? If that long? And so our hope is that maybe not a lot of communities will even apply for it, that don't even know about it or whatever. Whatever, you know, everybody may be trying to get it. But
Whatever.
maybe it's the first time you guys have heard it, so, anyway, it's a shot in the dark.
That's right.
But-
But thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for your efforts, and thank you for coming forward. And so that would be great. We'll make sure we get a letter. So,
And just go back to your Tiger Grant file. That probably had a letter similar to what we need.
I think they actually had a resolution at that time or whatever, but I think we can get a letter of support.
Yeah, and it's
Thank you
like
very
we do
much.
need it we need it now.
okay,
So anyway.
very good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all.
I do. So we have a motion. I just thought about that. I don't think I voted. Okay. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Now the ayes have it. So we really did vote. It's official.
There you go.
Okay? Thank you.
Fire Department selection of officers.
Within your packet, you have a letter from the former chief, Bill Helmick, identifying the officers that were selected by the Washington Fire Company. Tim Frankenberg is the fire chief, Mike Holtmeyer is the deputy chief, and Nick Risch as the assistant chief. Nick and Mike are here. Tim could not make it tonight, but this is the annual letter for their election officers that needs approval by the city council.
Any comments or questions?
You guys-
You want to talk?
You want to say it?
Nope, they're shaking their heads. Well, Nick's getting up.
Oh, Nick's going to get up. Sure.
Make Bill proud.
Oh. You guys don't want to be here that long, though. That's right. Well, thank you guys for having us, and thank you for the opportunity to serve the city of Washington. And I know on behalf of the chief and the rest of the members, we look forward to continued service. So thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I make a motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Padkey, seconded by Hydrich, to approve the new officers for the fire department. Tim Frankenberg as fire chief, Mike Holtmeyer as deputy chief, and Nick Risch as assistant chief. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approved the officers. Very good. Thank you, guys. Best
Mayor-
of luck to you.
Mayor's presentations, appointments, and reappointments. Certificate of Appreciation, Washington Rotary Club.
Somebody here.
Well, we're going to have Chief and Bill.
Any Rotary members here?
Bill is here.
Come on up here.
We got members.
We have members.
There you go. Steve's here.
Sully, you want to come down there?
Rotary? Oh.
Sully, you want to go down there?
I will.
Not anymore. I know.
The ranks are swelling here, so we're getting better, yeah.
I don't think they'll count it. I don't.
Okay, so as you remember, we've started doing these certificate of appreciations for some of the service organizations in our community who have supported our efforts and have contributed funding towards the different projects. So tonight, we're going to recognize the Rotary Club of Washington. And whereas the Rotary Club of Washington was founded in 1970 and has grown to more than 130 business leaders with a common belief in the concept of service above self. And whereas all funds raised by the Rotary Club of Washington stay local with contributions going to the main park, Ronzik Field, Rotary Riverfront Trail, and the All Abilities Park. And whereas the Rotary Club of Washington has recently donated $60,000 for the Rotary Riverfront Trail expansion and improvements. Now therefore, I, Sandy Lucy, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor, and on behalf of all our governing body and all our citizens, do hereby tender this certificate of appreciation to extend a heartfelt thank you and express our appreciation to the Rotary Club of Washington for their generous donation to the Washington community. Signed, Sandy Lucy, Mayor. So, So thank you all very much. Now, who would like to make a comment? So,
I'll make a comment about the new trail. I was on it yesterday. It's magnificent. I love that trail. That new one is just, to the west is, that's a real jewel. And when it's done, I mean, I can see that center field with soccer games, all kinds of, no, really, seriously. It's like its own little area, you know? It's really neat. It really neat. Too bad it floods once in a while, but, you know, that's okay. That's okay. Anyway, I think it's a great place to, it's another diamond in the jewels of Washington. I mean, that just couldn't be better. That's the way I look at it. If you haven't walked it, do it. It's great. It's great. You see animals that you don't normally see. You can see how the river meanders. You know, you don't get to see that. You can see St. John's Island. People talk about it, but it's neat. It really is a neat addition. A lot of thought went into it. So I would say I thank the Parks Department. Darren, that was one of your first projects.
It was started way before me, so.
Yeah, but it's fantastic. So that's my comments.
okay, go ahead and say something, and then Greg.
How much time we got?
We could tell you to sit down.
That's enough.
Rotary Club is a fantastic organization to belong to. The people of the community are committed to serving this community and developing and contributing this community. One thing you don't know about Rotary is worldwide, their mission is to stamp out polio, and we are that far away from doing that in the world. So that's quite an accomplishment. And it's fair time, and it's also Rotary car raffle time. So you can get your tickets from Chief Ed Menifee.
I didn't know you were going to take the mic from
Yes, we're going to say.
Shameless.
So and all that money goes back in the community. That's why I'm up here. So, thank you.
Hey, no kidding. Take a picture. Do some really yummy gin tonics over there.
I'll hand this to you. Are you the senior member? Is that it? The senior member.
I'm good.
We're good.
She's actually doing very well. Is she really? Mm-hmm. I was just on a GoPro team. Cancer has
Thank you all.
pretty comfortable.
Thanks, guys.
Sure you smile, Mark. You're never one of those pictures.
I didn't see.
Proclamation presentation, National Night Out.
Yeah.
You're going to ask for more money? No. Sell more tickets? No. Yeah.
I can.
Okay, so we have a second proclamation for our police officers. Chief Menifee is going to accept this, and we are Officer Daryl Balladeer. He started this, and it's going to be the 2018 National Night Out, and it's going to be taking place on Tuesday, August the 7th. And across the country, there'll be the National Night Out, sponsored by the police officers, and they are planning big things. So anyway, Mayor's Proclamation, City of Washington, Missouri, 2018 National Night Out. Whereas the National Association of Town Watch, NATW, sponsors a national community building campaign on Tuesday, August 7th, 2018, entitled National Night Out. And whereas the National Night Out campaign provides an opportunity for neighbors in Washington, Missouri to join over 38 million neighbors across approximately 16,000 communities from all 50 states, U.S. territories, and military bases worldwide. And whereas National Night Out is an annual community building campaign that promotes police-community partnerships and neighborhood camaraderie to make our neighborhoods safer, more care places to live. And whereas neighbors in Washington, Missouri assists the Washington Police Department through joint community building efforts and support the National Night Out 2018. And whereas it is essential that all neighbors of Washington, Missouri come together with police and work together to build a safer, more caring community. Now therefore I, Sandy Lucy, Mayor of Washington, Missouri, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, August 7th, 2018 to be National Night Out in the city of Washington, Missouri, and call upon all citizens of Washington to join with the Washington Police Department and the National Association of Town Watch in support of activities to be held by the Washington Police Department. I further call upon all citizens of Washington to observe National Night Out by keeping the porch light or exterior light of their residence on all night, Tuesday, August 7th, 2018. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of the City of Washington, Missouri, this 16th day of July, 2018. Signed, Sandy Lucy, Mayor, and Mary Trentman, City Clerk. So, there you go.
So we have some activities planned for National Night Out. We're
Selling
going,
tickets?
say what?
Selling tickets?
No, I won't be doing that. But we're going to have an evening at the market for Farmers Market downtown. There'll be vendors, games, treats for the kids, activities for the children. We're going to have a fire truck, police car, ambulance, all down there to get the neighbors together and celebrate. We're seeing about a little bit of an ice cream social kind of thing going on. The YMCA is joining in with a run walk. They'll start at the Y, come to the farmers market, spend a little time, and then go back to Y. And then they're going to have live music at the Y. And if we can convince the Parks Director, Darren Dunkel, to be the DJ, we'll have farmers market live music. So we gotta see if I can get him to do that. But all about spending time together as a community, police, fire, everyone, and looking to combine to make this a safer community and work together for it. So I've signed you all up for the run walk, just to let you know for the Y. So.
Definitely a walk.
Right after you.
But it should be a good time. We're looking forward to it.
It's Tuesday after the fair.
Board of Appeals appointment.
Okay, we have an appointment to the Board of Appeals, and I believe that you received the resume in your previously, and so the appointment would be Matthew Coleman. His term would be ending in June of 2023. Any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Holtmeyer, to approve the appointment of Matthew Coleman to the Board of Appeals. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the appointment. Thank you.
Special Fair Police appointments.
Also in your packet this evening is a list of officers that we will be appointing for the fair.
Yes. So I request your approval for 20 special officers for the fair. They're from Franklin County, Warren County, St. Clair, Pacific, Sullivan, Honesville, and New Haven. We've got so many this year because the word got out from the pay increase last year, so we also started a little earlier this year in looking for people. So we have a good response. We plan on scheduling them to space them out to cover more time, give some of our officers a little more time on the weekends after working several days of the fair, and putting a few on maybe on Thursday as extras in that. So we should have plenty of security to keep it everyone safe and have a safe family-run fair. So
Very good. Any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Hydrich, to approve the appointments of the police officers as special officers for the Washington Town and Country Fair. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the officers. the
Thank you very much, Council.
All right, thank you.
Public hearings, special use permit, short-term rental, 312 Cedar Street.
Sit here.
Sal?
Yep, that's the one. All right, this is a fairly straightforward special use permit request. It is another short-term lodging, or as they're more commonly known as Airbnb, located at 312 Cedar Street here. It's directly behind the Calvin Theater on Cedar Street. As you can see from the surrounding zoning, it's right outside of the downtown district. This light blue is the C3 district that actually would permit it by right, and they would need a special use permit, but this yellow striped area is R1B, single-family residential. And so in order to do this vacation rental, short-term lodging, they need a special use permit. As we've said in the past on these, they're fairly infrequent and not normally a detriment to the surrounding properties. And as this is an historic district and technically still in the downtown area, we think it even fits into the area even more so. There are a number of homes in the district that are utilized the same way. So pretty straightforward. If you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions or comments?
They recently did go through a renovation, I think, with this use in mind, so the building inspections should have already been up to code for this use. So.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve.
It's a public hearing, isn't it?
It is a public hearing. Okay, is there anyone who would like to address the council on this item? Okay, now,
So moved.
we need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Waterman, to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
An ordinance granting a special use permit to utilize 312 Cedar Street as a short-term rental in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Introduced by Councilman Scornia. This is the ordinance that follows the previous items. Any questions or comments?
An ordinance granting a special use permit to utilize 312 Cedar Street as a short-term rental in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Pettit,
Yes.
Hydrich,
Aye.
Scornia. Yes. Moheski.
Aye.
Patke,
Yes.
Sullentrup,
Abstain.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Waterman.
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Rezone 132 South Old Pottery Road from R1A Single Family to R3 Multifamily, parcel ID 10-5-2-1.0-026-085.200.
It's the second one. There you go. All right. Thank you. So this, I'm going to kind of flip through this presentation because you've seen some of this already from whenever we rezoned items 3 and 4. This application, there were technically 4 requests, but it was all for one development, just with 4 different applications. There was the annexation, and then number 2 was actually the item Mary just read, the rezoning of 2.2 acres. So I'll just go through this kind of as one presentation, and then I guess you can have 2 motions done separately. The first request, and I'll kind of go out of order here, but they're both for the same request, the same zoning. The first one is to annex approximately 16.8 acres off of South Pottery Road. You can see it's kind of L-shaped here, and it does wrap around the city limits. This darker line here on the north and east of that parcel is the existing city limits, and they are requesting to bring this into the city limits as R3 multifamily residential, as well as the following rezoning. This overview kind of shows the existing zoning in the area. You can see the yellow is the R1A single family residential. However, what you approved last month was these 2 parcels, this larger one just to the north, and then this smaller triangular piece has been rezoned and approved to be C2 general commercial. Primarily, our recommendation on that was because of its frontage along Highway 100 and its proximity to this existing commercial district, the Highland Meadows. Our master plan does show an east-west connection from where Don Avenue connects to High Street, eventually over to Pottery Road, and we would presume that it would go through this development to meet that idea of the master plan. As for the surrounding area here, the area that they're requesting in purple would be to be brought into the city limits as R3 multifamily. This area hatched in blue is the rezoning, the item that was just read. The reason there's only one ordinance on there is because with annexation, we do a public hearing, and then we actually have 15 days before we do an ordinance. With the rezoning, we actually do the ordinance the same night. So that's just the reason it's like that on the agenda. For staff's recommendation on both, we are recommending approval of the rezoning and the annexation into the city as R3. We think with its proximity to the newly zoned commercial property and to the commercial property to the east, it does create a nice transition from this general commercial higher intensity use of that what is next to single family, and then as it transitions further west and southwest into single-family residential. We've recommended this in other areas of town as you see commercial developments getting closer to existing single-family residential. You're not often going to have the single-family residential back up directly to a commercial development like we presume to see on Highland Meadows or on what was just approved, so that higher density residential use is something that is more appropriate next to those commercial uses, especially with its proximity to the highway. I will just mention, as it was brought up at our P&Z meeting, in conjunction with our comprehensive plan, we do have goals listed out under land use. One of our main objectives is to encourage multifamily development and review zoning amendments or zoning requests as it pertains to encouraging that type of starter home development, as the comprehensive plan puts it. I do think that was something that the Planning and Zoning Commission had in mind when they voted on this last week. They did vote to approve both requests unanimously at 7-0. So that's kind of where we're at now from staff's recommendation and the vote that went through P&Z. If you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions of Sal?
And again, just so, I know it's kind of confusing with all four here, but where it says number 2, this is the ordinance that's on tonight that actually can be, had a motion made for approval or table, up to you guys, and then outlined in blue here with this number 1, this is just for discussion. It is a public hearing that we put in the paper, but we will wait to have any ordinance. As state statute, we have to wait 15 days before we put an ordinance back on. Thank you. Oh, I do want to mention, sorry. If you're still in your packet, there was a petition submitted, a protest petition signed by the neighbors. We notified, as per our normal policy, everyone within 185 feet of this rezoning request, because we don't notify on annexations. That's never been our policy. It's just on rezonings in the existing city limits. And so the protest petition you see in your packet is for the property owners that we notified within 185 feet of this this parcel. And so I think if Mr. Piontek can correct me if I'm wrong, but that is to force a supermajority vote, correct?
Correct.
All right.
6 out of 8.
So there's 8 neighbors?
No, there's,
How many neighbors were there? I see how many people signed.
Yeah, those are, I believe, couples are married people in those homes. There were only, I'd have to pull it up. Are there 4 parcels in there?
It's 3 houses,
3 houses, okay.
3 properties,
3 properties.
So this is all of them.
correct.
Yeah, that was all of them that we notified, because if you see how large these parcels are, we didn't go much, once you get to 185 feet, you don't go much beyond 3 property owners.
30% of the property owners, if they file a
Right.
petition, then it requires the supermajority of the council.
And that isn't the applicant, because obviously, since the applicant owns this piece here as part of the request, they're not on the protest petition.
Okay, so this is a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to address the council on this item? And state your name and your address.
My name's Gary Dussault, 136 South Old Pottery Road. I've also provided a little bit of artwork, if you don't mind, make it easier and quicker to talk about what we're discussing here. It shows all the areas that are up there right now.
Thank you.
Big shark. That's what you wanted, right?
Sir, can I get one for the record, please? Thank you.
And again, I understand it is the best interest that the land does move forward with the development. The decision tonight will leave quite an impression on the neighborhood and the city. With that in mind, I would like to take a moment just to summarize previous meetings because this is our last opportunity to discuss this property. There's been a lot said as far as the development of the Camp Trader tract. This is the Show Me State, and I want to at least identify what I believe is consistent with statements made by the developer, Kurt Understall. We may work R1 around the edges. My plan is to come up with a plan that works with the neighborhood. He also stated he is seeking R3 zoning so he can transition from the commercial zone property. Based on that information, I provided a plan as a means to help corroborate the thoughts of the developer. And I just want you to take a few minutes to review this plan so everyone can see what can actually go into the area. Again, this is not how the land will be developed. It's just a tool for discussion. This plan shows a breakdown if the lots were broken as 6,000 square feet. That is 41 properties in this blue hash mark area. If this is left as R1A, it would be 20 properties at 12,000 square feet for R1A. You can also do the math, if you'd like, in the likelihood of change in zoning for R3 from 3,000 square feet to 2,000 square feet allowance. And in this area, it would be 111 6,000 square foot properties. So if you go down to 2,000 square foot, that's 333 units you can put in this area. What I'm really getting at is what is of real interest to us is only the area with the blue hash marks. The primary goal here is to have this defined boundary in the subdivision classified as R1A, left as R1A as it is. And before the vote, with Kurt Understall here tonight, will he stand by his statements validating this area to remain R1A? That's all we're asking. I believe that is a small compromise in keeping some peace in the community and allow for growth in the community. Your time and cooperation with this matter have been greatly appreciated.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions of Gary?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the map.
Yep.
Anyone else like to address the council?
Hi. Thanks for your time. My name is Steve Hoffman, and I'm a resident of Spring Valley Meadow Lake Farm, on Spring Valley Lane. So our property would be located just to the south of the main 14-acre square that's there that is yet to be annexed. I'm a resident of Meadow Lake Farm subdivision. The land behind my home is part of the proposed annexation that's being considered here tonight. I, like many others that built homes on Spring Valley Drive, always knew that someday homes would be built on the property. We knew the surrounding area was Zone 1, R1A, single-family housing, and so built new homes based upon that plan. Now that it's being annexed, it's been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission to be brought into the city as R3, high-density housing. At the same time, the commission is now considering increasing the density of the R3 development down to 2,000 square feet per unit, or 33% denser than it already is. It has been said that the city must keep up with surrounding communities and make it more viable for developers. My question is, what about the current homeowners? Don't we deserve some consideration in this decision? Think about it. This new 2,000 square foot per unit density would mean denser housing codes than O'Fallon or St. Charles. Meadow Lake Farm is really an ultra-low density housing and an asset to the entire Washington area. The effect of this new denser code directly to my street, my subdivision, will only decrease the value of those homes. The added traffic and the noise that goes with it, light pollution, storm runoff issues, will make our properties less desirable. And putting traffic for 100 or more, and as I hear tonight, Gary said it could be more than that, 100 or more new housing units on Pottery Road is just hard to imagine. At the recent planning and zoning meeting, I welcomed the comments of the developer when he said, "My plan is to come up with a plan to work with the neighborhood. I would put apartments up against commercial areas and transition with townhomes and single family to the south." It's the right idea, but there is nothing in writing and no tangible plan. What we possibly have here is 16 acres of land that is zoned R3. This will be some of the largest sections of land in the city that is zoned R3. If that property for some reason is sold or developed by someone else due to unforeseen events, will that person have the same plan as Kurt? Probably not. I strongly suggest that the City Council reject this zoning request and consider other options. First is to annex the property as R1A. That was the plan for as long as I can remember. Another option would be to have areas of blended zoning included in the overall plan, keeping current single-family homes next to new single-family homes. This would allow the city to grow responsibly, protect the current residents, and still give the developer the flexibility that he's looking for. Thanks for your time. Any questions?
Mr. Hoffman, when the annexation came up for Meadow Lake Farms a few years ago, were you in support or denial of that?
I've always felt that Meadow Lake Farm would become a part of the city of Washington. But unfortunately, everybody gets a vote, and it didn't pass. So there are things that would be good about being in the city. We might have a little more say in this issue now. I understand we're not residents, so we don't.
I guess that's my point.
Yeah.
We got staunch criticism from Meadow Lake Farms as a whole when it came annexation time, that they did not want to be annexed in the city. Leave us alone. We don't want it. We don't want it. If they would have taken that, then your comments tonight, I think, to me, would have been a little bit more valid that they are city residents. You understand my...
I do
talking
understand that.
with the neighbors and et cetera.
Right.
The Meadow Lake Farms issue, to me, you're not in the city, and not that you don't have a voice and not that you don't have a property to protect. I get that. But when they were staunchly against it, it weighs on my decision.
When you say we, are you saying who?
I can only get, homeowners came here and basically said, they started off as Meadow Lake as a whole. And then there was a couple who said, we don't want to be associated with all of them. So there was only two people that I remember that came up and said they were for the annexation. We need it. But the majority of Meadow Lake were against it. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way I took it annexation time.
Okay. Well, I wasn't at that meeting, so I don't know how to answer that. And you can only ask our subdivision leaders for that same question now. It may be a different answer. I don't know.
And again, that's why I asked my question. I didn't want to classify you as all of Meadow Lake, but I wanted to ask a question because they've been grouped together. We're opposed to it, and now I want to voice what goes on in the city, I guess is my question.
Well, I guess I'm not opposing what goes on in the city because I understand that this should be developed. But I think that some of the development topics that are coming up right now are pretty big topics. And I do think that what this property does could really change that area, and I'm a part of it. So I have to voice my opinion.
Anyone else? Thank you, Steve.
My name's Rick Moore, and I'm a resident of my wife and I are residents of 138 South Old Pottery. We are one of 3 families that are on that ridge. Larry and Stephanie Beck and Gary and Claire Dussault, who are all opposed, and we had a petition. We opposed at the board meeting, and we're still opposed to it. I think at this point in time, it seems like our biggest concern is, I think this is going to, I mean, this has already been voted by 7 people in the board to go forward as R3. Our biggest concern has always been from day one, well, there's more than one concern, but our biggest concern was we are living in front of a huge green space right now, and this is going to be a dramatic change from green to concrete and parking lots. And we can live with that if that's what has to happen, but what we're really asking for, what Steve was talking about and what Gary was talking about, is a transition. And we've heard last week at the board meeting about a transition from the commercial to they're going to build these townhouses, a commercial by making apartments and then having the multifamily. But we'd also like, what we would like is those of us who have residences, us, the 3 couples of us, plus the people for Meadow Lake that are around that way, and the 3 houses on Pottery Road, that, as you can see on his drawings there, the hash marked area, that, as has been offered by Kurt, where he said we may work R1 around the edges. What we'd like to see is just that very thing, working around the edges, making that be R1 around the edges, so that behind us, we're going to have dense family housing, we're going to have very high density housing, maybe the highest density of any development in Washington and highest in related counties. We can, if we have to have that, fine, but what we would like to see is a ring of single family develops, R1 making a ring around the perimeter, so that behind us directly we have some single family dwellings going on around and to the north of also Meadow Lake. This would be a transition for us, just as they say they need a transition. They say they need a transition from commercial to the townhouses. We'd like to see a transition from us to single-family dwellings and then going into the high-density townhouses. And this is what I think we're asking for, is kind of that kind of a buffer. And we were hoping that this could happen. Now, since it's already been passed since the R3 has already been passed, what we'd like, I guess, for you guys to do is send it back to planning and zoning to reconsider not changing the whole thing back to like what we'd really like is R1, but formalizing the idea of a R1 buffer around the perimeter of the area. And this would not affect the commercial area, because that would already have a buffer. And by the way, we just learned last week that there would be apartments back there. We didn't know this. In fact, we've had a hard time finding anything out, because it's been all kind of it's been hard for us to get up to speed to exactly what's going to be built back there. We've tried to do our best, and I wanted to thank Gary for taking the time and his money and efforts to really look into this, and Steve also, because they're a little more able to understand all this than I have been. But I was wanting to thank him for the effort and time that he put into, so that you guys could see exactly what's going to happen. And so that's what we're asking, and I hope that you will consider it, because we are tax-paying. We've all been tax-paying residents for many years. I guess I've lived here for, oh gosh, almost 40 years, Gary 20 years, and the other families in that area, the Becks, have owned that property for some 50 years, I suppose. And then Boers, I don't know how long. They're not in the city limits. They're on the edge. They're not affected. They're not actually residents, but they will be affected, and they've lived there for longer before we were here. And I think the Meadow Lake people should be considered, because in fact, no matter what the hard feelings have been in the past, they will eventually be residents of the city, and they should be considered. In fact, I only know 2 people from, the only 2 people that I know from the Meadow Lake that I know closely were both actually in favor of the annexation as resident posted. One was a board member, and who was my insurance agent, and he was actually spoke and pushed for the annexation as opposed to, so not everybody over there was opposed to it. And by the way, one thing I should mention, or should be mentioned, is the idea of pushing for this ring of houses or R1 around the edges, that whereas when Kurt said we may work R1 around the edges, the one who expanded this idea was Steve, was in a conversation with Tom Holtmeyer, who's the head of the board, and between the two of them, that's where this idea sprung forth of having this R1 around the perimeter. So hopefully you'll kick it back to the council, and they'll come up with kick it back to the board, and take another shot at it. Again, we realize this is sounds like a done deal, but we'd like at least some of the area to remain R1. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, yeah, I ask questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Jim.
Hello, I'm Jim Eckelkamp. I'm also a resident of the Meadow Lake Farm subdivision. My property's not contingent to what you're talking about tonight, but I'm behind Orville Brinker, and someday my property might be affected by it. So I agree with these gentlemen. I did not prepare any statements. So, and I did vote in favor of annexation both times it came up. So thank you very much for considering all the comments everybody had. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Is there anyone that's at planning and zoning that can speak to if that's what Kurt wanted to do as far as the R1?
Yes, I'm Kurt Understall. I'm the applicant on this property. What we're going to try to do here is develop the thing, and you know, the map that Gary's got. I briefly was shown a copy of it. You know, that's a perfect world scenario. My concern would be if Gary's going to say that forever and ever and ever his property's never going to get zoned commercial because he butts against Highway 100 property. He could easily ask for commercial property down the road, and if I would sell, then I would have to have a guarantee that if I sold a single family, that would always stay single family. So again, while these gentlemen have fears about what could or couldn't happen, they've always known that Highway 100's been there. They've always known that Highway 100 was always going to grow. We're not doing anything inconsistent with the city comprehensive plan. We are actually trying to buffer from the commercial that's been approved to the single family in the rear. So we feel that townhomes, villas, those kind of things would be a good buffer. I had a conversation with Dale after the meeting. I said, you know, we could build some single family along the back against Meadow Lake, but you know, to try to ring all of that land, you can see how quilt patched the boundary lines are. It's not the most perfect piece of land to begin with. This land also has been for sale since 2008, I believe. So again, Mr. Campschrader called me, contacted me about 4 or 5 months ago and said he needs to do something. He's in bad health. He wants to sell it. His sister lives in Kansas City. So again, we do have the property to the east of here. So we thought, well, you know, it makes good sense, Don Avenue coming over to Potter Road someday, develop it in phases. And again, I think my record shows that I do good quality developments. I take into account the terrain. You know, that was another comment. They wanted all the trees left and the roll of the land. Well, to get the roll of the land and stay with the terrain, you're not going to put the whatever numbers he mentioned. You're not going to get that kind of numbers. Another thing Gary's not well informed is you can have the greater density, but you have to have roads, you have to have parking, all the code requirements, as John well knows and Sal well knows, that all takes up space. So if you try to develop that land with the dense numbers, you'll never meet city code. So those numbers of 300 residents, that's a false statement, because you got to have so much green space, you got to have so much parking, those kind of things. So you know, I can mention multifamily down on Stafford Street. There's been no, to my knowledge, and I've been in the real estate business for 25 years, started first development in 1993, grown with the town. To my knowledge, I have never seen any residential property values go down that were built to multifamily. You know, if that was the case, we would have blighted ground on Fifth Street next to Williams Brothers' apartment complex. Shoot, back in 2000, I want to say 2008, there was a high-density townhome development put in there next to the Dr. Gerstenson's office there. Still well-maintained, still, and then all that was all residential back there, and there's an apartment down in our, off of, I think it's Harn Street. So to my knowledge, high-density housing can coexist quite nicely with single-family. And, you know, the concern I would have is if we would say, okay, we'll build the whole thing single-family, will the same gentleman here be willing to buy the lots along 100 and put single-family homes against Highway 100? Because obviously you can plat anything you want. You got to be able to build it and sell it. So we feel we've got to come up with a good plan to transition from commercial, multifamily to single-family. So that's what we're trying to do. So thank you very much for your time.
Any questions of Kurt? Okay, thank you, Kurt. Any council discussion?
Is Hillcrest, what's that zoned?
Hillcrest.
Hillcrest here on West 2nd Street?
Yeah, right next to Andy Understell's.
We'd have to check and pull that up. The ones that are up there on the hill, the senior housing on the hill off of 2nd Street.
The low-income housing there by Andy's.
I want to say it's R3, but
We're not saying that. Right behind
Rhine River is zone R2 overlay.
Those are those duplexes behind Rhine River.
Yeah.
This is to the west of that.
We're talking to the west of that. It's zoned R3.
R3, okay.
That blue.
Yes. That is multifamily R3, unplanned.
That hurt Andy's values?
Not to my knowledge, but they were there before Andy decided to go ahead and build, but not to my knowledge.
Do you have another comment?
Yes, please. Just to clarify a little bit, I did put roads on there, and I was generous on the lot sizes. They were 6,000 square feet. I know I didn't take everything in consideration. It was just so you can see something. It was easier to talk to and walk from.
Okay, sure.
So I was, and those were used from, I think it's Havencourt Place. Those are lot sizes and streets. That's what I used to help put it on this paper, just to clarify it a little bit.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? I suppose we need a motion to accept the public hearing into the minutes.
Make a motion.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion by Moheski, seconded by Waterman, to accept this hearing into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the minutes, or accepted the item. Thank you.
Mark,
And-
if I could interrupt, if Mark, can they go ahead and also vote to accept the minutes on the voluntary annexation?
Yes.
Since that was discussed at
Yes.
the same time?
Yes. I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Moheski, to accept the public hearing based on the voluntary annexation.
3E.
Which would be 3E. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
An ordinance rezoning 132 South Old Pottery Road, parcel ID 10-5-21.0-026-085.200 from R1A Single Family to R3 Multifamily in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Patke.
Introduced by Councilman Patke. This is the ordinance that follows the previous item. Any comments or questions? Okay.
An ordinance rezoning 132 South Old Pottery Road, parcel ID 10-5-21.0-026-085.200 from R1A Single Family to R3 Multifamily in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Pettit?
Yes.
Heydrich?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
Moheski?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Sullentrop? Holtzmeyer?
Aye.
Waterman?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Code Amendment, Section 415.015.C.1.
John?
Yes, this is a code amendment. I was contacted by State Emergency Management Agency back in early spring to take a look at our floodplain development ordinance, specifically a modification to the flood insurance study that the City of Washington is a part of. Currently, the flood insurance study is dated October 11th, 2012, or 2011, I believe. And there was an update, or there is an update proposed right now. It's a pending document. Keep that in mind. It's a pending document in the flood insurance study, which is a parent study that the City of Washington is part of. So it's not a standalone flood insurance study for the City of Washington. We are part of this much larger study, which is incorporates the jurisdictional boundaries of Franklin County. So we are a part of this study. In doing so, they indicated to me, they being SEMA, indicated to me that we needed to update our document, our September 14th, with a September 14th date of 2018. I immediately got information or received information, requested information and received it from SEMA that there would be no changes to base flood elevations or floodplain maps within the jurisdictional boundaries of the City of Washington. That was verified by myself. I also took a look at the maps. There is like a parent map that just identifies the jurisdictional boundaries that do have changes. Specifically, I think New Haven was one of them that may have had some changes. There may have been some other ones in the county, but obviously I didn't go into great detail and study, changes within the county. I contacted SEMA. I asked them when they needed to get this resolved by. They said by September 14th that they need to have an ordinance in place in order to send all that information to FEMA to, continue our participation in the National Flood Insurance Program. So that NFIP is what our citizens have the option to purchase insurance from for flooding situations. So we need to stay current with the current flood insurance study. All that being said, this is just a change in the date of that approved flood insurance study. It does not change not one location within the City of Washington's boundaries of base flood insurance or base flood elevations or the map that you see that everybody's familiar, the floodplain map that everyone is familiar with. I did receive a call today from Councilman Patke just asking a couple questions about it. And I think his specific question, it was a great question, is why is the City of Washington approving this ordinance change prior to when the go live date is, which was a great question, and why are we doing it ahead of Franklin County? And I responded with, well, I did not check in with Franklin County. I know that our jurisdictional boundaries had no changes, so I felt that our citizens were being taken care of, were being reviewed, and our job was being done. So I did not check to see what the county or the other surrounding communities would. Now, I do think, after the question was asked, which, like I said, was a great question, that it does not hurt us to hold off to see what the county or the other jurisdictional jurisdictional boundaries do, New Haven, Union, things of that nature. We have no changes. We really have nothing to gain and or lose in this situation. It's a procedural thing that we need to do and move forward by the September 14th deadline.
my thoughts were that if the city of Washington endorses this tonight, we're proceeding ahead of Franklin County without them approving that their changes have been made in New Haven or wherever it is in the county. That's all. That was my main question to John today. So if we let the county figure out their differences and their changes, and then we go along with the parent company, the parent FIS, I guess you could call it.
Yes.
And we have plenty of time to do that by September. So
Three meetings.
My suggestion to John was if we can table it, let Franklin County make sure that they're worked out and that everything is correct, and we still have time to come back, and therefore doesn't affect anything in Washington, we'll be happy to.
And John, you and I had a brief conversation today. Is county going to approve this tomorrow?
Yeah.
Or do they have the hearing tomorrow?
Well, I thought that the commission hearing was tomorrow, but I believe it's planning and zoning. So it's got to go to planning and zoning and the commission.
Planning and zoning's tomorrow night.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I haven't not kept up with
gotcha.
the county's schedule on approving this. It's just not something that, I put much effort into doing. I just know that for the city of Washington and our jurisdictional boundaries, there's no changes. So it does not affect negatively, positively. It's a no, it's just a procedural item to become current with the current Franklin County.
With the effective date.
Effective date. That's all that this change is proposed. So either which way, we have time.
So we can, I guess what we're open to, the councils, whatever they choose, obviously, but we can have the public hearing now and then just hold off on item 3G, which is the ordinance, if you wish to table that when that comes up on the agenda. But we can certainly go ahead and just open it up for public comment because it is a public.
Fine. Okay. And then we'll table the next time.
Then you can, if the council chooses, they can table the next one, and we'll bring that up at a later date when we feel it's more appropriate with the counties, what they've done.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anyone who would like to address the council on this item?
My name is Charles Schrepfer. I'm a lifelong resident in Washington, Missouri, and we've been working with floodplains since 2002 in Washington, Missouri. The question here is, first of all, did you do it right? It seems to me that FEMA says, not SEMA, that you're supposed to go ahead and have this in the Federal Reserve. I didn't see it in the Federal Reserve as a notice. And after the Federal Reserve and advertised in a local paper, then you got 90-day review. We didn't get a 90-day review. It was only advertised about last month sometime that it was going to be this time in a local paper. And I don't think you're following the way it should be done, and you didn't give the people the opportunity to do their 90 days to check this out and take a look at. The other thing I can't understand is Franklin County is going to approve this. Now, we were at the Franklin County meeting, and they are approving definitions. Now, in August of 2014, Franklin County went ahead and approved these definitions. They also revised them on April 6, 2017, and at no time did they ask SEMA, FEMA, or the city of Washington to be a part of it. They did it on their own. Why are they asking SEMA or Washington to be a part of it? Another thing, it says that Washington has to do this because they're with Franklin County and all this. So I just got away from Franklin County, and I went over St. Charles County, and I looked on the internet at St. Charles County, and I looked at Cotterville. November 2015, they approved their floodplain study. Wentzville approved theirs as August of 2012. Why is Franklin County got to everybody approve it when you go to St. Charles County, the whole town and the county didn't approve it at the same time? There's so many questions here. People need time to look at. That's the bottom line. So I'm going to ask you not to take this into the minutes as a public hearing because I don't think it's legally a public hearing or can't be legally a public hearing. I don't know. I'm not an expert on it. But if you got to have the 90-day review period before a public hearing, we didn't get that. We need to have the 90-day review period. You need to check with FEMA, not SEMA. We went up to SEMA, a few of us, and talked to them. They didn't have answers. You know, they couldn't answer one question we asked them.
Excuse me, if I could, hey, John, did FEMA start the 90-day comment period on this change for this effective date?
Yes, I'm unable to get the exact dates when they did start it, but.
But that was up to them to go ahead and do that.
I did contact SEMA today, actually, because I figured that question would be up, and they did indicate that 90-day comment period has elapsed. So it's beyond that 90-day comment period.
But no, it was never a public notice in the local paper or on the Federal Register. It's supposed to be a notice first, and then the 90 days starts. It was never there, that we know of.
And it is true that I did not receive a notice that there was a 90-day public comment period, so I would not have been made aware of that. Now, I am looking into, at the request of Mr. Schreffer, but we are going to look into that since there was no physical map revision or physical map change, since nothing was done within the city of Washington other than a date change, is it required by FEMA to notify us of the 90-day public comment period? I don't know that answer yet, but I hope to know that answer here within the next couple days. I do know that when there is a physical map revision and things do change on the maps and within the flood insurance study for the jurisdiction that we all live in, that it does require a 90-day comment period. But since there was no change, I think that is the difference, but I don't know that. So I'm working on getting that information.
But I think the battle here is Franklin County. If they weren't notified, or Franklin County wasn't notified of that time, then this battle needs to be fought at Franklin County level through FEMA.
Before it comes to the city.
Correct.
Yeah.
In the sense, and exactly my comment why we should table it here in the city of Washington. Let Franklin County figure it out, have their time frame, have them fight it out with FEMA. We follow suit if all's well through the county. That's my opinion.
Just to be clear, though, we are a separate jurisdiction separated from Franklin County. There is no,
we're not connected.
1-2 AB. We don't have to follow them. They don't have to follow us. We're a separate organization, a separate jurisdiction. Yeah. So it's a good practice to do so, but we're a separate organization within the same flood insurance study.
Okay. We've always been separate because we can be audited at a different.
Yes.
I mean,
We've
the city can be audited,
That's
and
exactly
the county
right.
can go ahead and be audited by FEMA separately. And
Because
so,
aren't there some counties in the state of Missouri who've not been audited yet?
That's correct,
I mean,
yes.
we have,
Gone through it.
we've gone through it, and this is the second time, basically, or whatever.
Yeah, the only, and I stress this again, the only thing that would be changed is the date on the cover. That's it, for Washington.
But we need to do the research and see how that really affects the citizens of Washington. Now, all we hear right now is it's the same, but the date's different. Well, if that's so simple, then let's just leave what we got and not get the new one. Now, put it like this.
Well, I don't think we're getting something new. I mean, I think we're just saying that.
we're getting a new effective
We're
date.
getting a new effective date. We have not made any changes
Right.
to the map
Okay.
because there were no changes suggested.
Needed to be made.
But here's the question. This is sent, when this is approved, the whole thing is approved by FEMA, and it's mapped and everything. It's sent to a place in Texas that if you want insurance, a bank, they contact them. Well, you're telling them to take the old one, throw it away, and get the new one. And you say, well, there's no difference. But what about all the map amendments and all that? Do they have all the map amendments?
That's all it
I
is.
don't know if they have those or not.
Yes.
They do.
I'd like to research that.
They do. They do have all those.
And that's fine.
But do they carry on?
Yes.
They do.
They do carry on?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to research that and check that. Also, I'd like to have the 90-day review period. So I'm asking you tonight not to accept this as a public hearing and not to act on it.
The only thing is, I think we can certainly accept this as a public hearing. It was duly, notice was put in the paper. It follows our local ordinances as far as that goes. But by all means, if we want to go ahead and wait and have the adoptive ordinance at a later date, we can certainly.
Really need to wait till Franklin County does what they do, and then it'd be so simple and easy for you people to do what you want to do.
I think it looks like we can do that. We just have to have it done by September 14th. So is the county going to act that soon?
We can find out.
Who knows that?
I can find out.
It's on the agenda for the county planning and zoning meeting tomorrow night.
So there you go.
Okay, so it looks like they're got
Moving
the
along.
ball rolling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very
Good.
much.
Thank you, Charlie. So what are we going to do here? Code amendment?
Just- you got to see if anybody else.
Okay, does anybody else want to address the council on this item? Okay, so we'll need to accept the public hearing into the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Holtmeyer to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. And then I suppose we need a motion to table, a motion and a second to table item G. Is that right, Mary?
Table.
Correct.
I'll second.
Okay,
I made a
so we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Waterman, to table item G, which is the ordinance, which would have followed the previous item. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you tabled that item. So, okay.
Citizens' comments.
Citizens' comments. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to address the council?
No, mine's going to be longer. Go ahead.
So, so you need to give us your name. Okay.
All right. My name is, I want to say hi.
Hi. Hi.
My name is Christy Brinker. Good cry.
Oh.
Oh, honey. You'll do good.
I would like to thank Mark Hydridge and the City of Washington Council Board for letting me come to talk to you about a bill, HB 2644, that was currently signed by our new governor, Mike Parsons, on July 7th, 2018. Now, what is HB 2644? I will get to you with that information here in a minute. There's another lady I would like to say things to, and that's Gretchen. Gretchen is a board member of Impact. Oh,
Okay.
there you go. Impact. They can't hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can.
Yes, we
Wow.
can.
We're good.
Yeah.
Impact is where I started on April 24th, 2013. 5 years. In October, I will be getting my 5-year plaque at our big banquet dinner. That is a big accomplishment for me, because Impact is a job for people with disabilities. And right now, this is a big ordeal, standing up in front of everybody and talking. So, being said, there is a federal legislator and a state legislator. I'm going to start with the bad guys, which is federal. So,
He didn't say this was going to be.
So the federal legislator says anyone under 25 cannot work in a shelter workshop unless they failed on the community employment 3 times. But some people can't, like me, and don't want to. But the state legislative people is standing up for us and for people that work at Impact, like me, for 5 years now. So, I have a picture of Roey Rowland from the state capitol in Jeff City, where I traveled on April 24th, 2018. I loved it up there. And I talked to Justin Alferman, who's currently working with our new governor, Mike Parsons, Nate Tate, who is currently from St. Clair Sullivan. And we were going to talk to Dave Schatz, but he left his office like 5 seconds before we got there. And I also want to point out Colleen over there in the green shirt as well. If it wasn't for Colleen, I would get lost at the State House in Jeff City. So I'm going to read a little something that Roy put together. In April, I went to the state capitol to voice my opinion about my job. My job means a lot to me. For me, I have depression. Some jobs in the community, if you have depression problems, they can fire you. Impact cares about me. Just recently, in March, I had hernia surgery. I was out for 4 weeks. Came back April 15th. And most of the people out in the community would probably fire me. Impact did not. In June, I was severely sick. And Impact did not fire me. So I'm going to read a little something to you that came out on May 4th, 2018. The Missouri House recognized the importance of shelter workshops to local communities as they unanimously perfected a bill aimed at promoting financial stability in the monthly funds received from the state. This is a very simple bill. It is a bill for shelter workshops, said bill sponsor Representative Roy Rowland, whose son works at a shelter workshop. Do not ask me because I don't know where at. That's not in the story. They have not had a raise for their fees since probably 2008, 2010. This would raise the fee from $19 to $21. HB 2644 would require that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education pay monthly out of the appropriate funds for that purpose. To each shelter workshop, a sum determined by specified criteria, but no less than $21 per day for each handicapped employee. I don't like using handicapped. I like using special needs. The state has not exactly met their obligations financially over the years. In fact, under the formula, a lot of years, I can't read the rest. Come here, Colleen. Sorry, that's why I bring it back up. Would that be would run short?
Yes.
Years would run short. We'll get a check in May, but necessary a check in June because the funds have run out, said Representative David Wood, who has been involved in his local shelter workshop for more than 30 years. I believe it is already in the budget, already to go, said Rowland. It is a question for getting this up and in front of the body so that we can have it perfected and then printed. Representatives from both sides of the aisle and around the state praised the important role shelter workshops play in the communities, to families, and to the state. Everyone who works there is happy to have a job and is happy to be able to provide for themselves. They are in I don't know this word, sorry.
Integral part of our community.
Integral part of our community, the workforce of Franklin County, said Justin Alferman. I'm good. You can walk away. In this county, the shelter workshop plays an integral role in making a piece of part that those on every single value made by the largest employer in the city of Washington. I just want to point out how many shelter workshops play an integral role in economic development of our state, said Alferman. The General Assembly oftentimes takes up legislation they feel is important with the aim of making a difference. This is one of those bills, according to Representative Nate Walker. For all those who support the developmentally disabled and the shelter workshops and the people they served every day, this is important to do, said Representative Jack Bunnan. A standing ovation followed the perfection of the bill and a 136-0 vote. This means so much to my family, my son, said Roland. So, okay. In May 4th, 2018, that went to the Senate. In June, it went to the state. In July, it went to our new governor. On July 7th, just recently, it passed. And the new bill number is State Bill number 743. So again, I want to say thank you to my supporters out there. Colleen, Aaron Griesheimer, Mary Jo Strotman, and Debbie DeBon, Sister Kathy. Debbie DeBon is another co-worker at Impact. I don't know how many people work at Impact, but there's a fairly amount of special needs people that work at Impact. There's another part of Impact called Job Ops. And I was told that Darren does a lot of part of Job Ops too. So I want to say thank you. And again, I want to thank you for this opportunity. And like I said, I love working at Impact. Thank you for your time. I have some information on Dignity Has a Voice. And Dignity Has a Voice is called It's My Job, My Choice, because it really is my job, my choice. So if you want some information, I got some bracelets, or you can go on Impact site, or you can find me on Facebook, which is Christy Brinker. But if you want some information, just say, hey, I want some information. And Gretchen, if you have any words about Impact, you can say.
Sure, thank you, Christy. I would just second everything that you said. Impact is such an important part of our community, and the fact that you have meaningful work to do is really, it's remarkable for you, but it's also remarkable for the city. So thank you, and thank you for being here. I'm super proud of you.
And one thing, we do a lot of work. We work for Parker Hannafin, and that's one job that I do and I love. Another job that I do is I work for Hennigan's. Hennigan's is located in New Haven, Missouri. It's a car automotive place. So I really love my job.
Thank you, Christy. Christy, thank you for being here. We're all really very proud of you. So, very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Great job, Christy.
Anyone else that would like to address the council?
Good evening. I am Tim Glastetter, and I'm here to discuss an ongoing issue with the city's sewer system and the damage that it has caused my mom, Wilma Glastetter. First, I want to thank the City Council for allowing me to share our concerns this evening. I'm sure some of you know my mom, but for those of you who don't, my mom is 84 years old and a lifelong resident of Washington area. And she's sitting here. On June 10th, 2018, the city's sewer system caused raw sewage to back up into my mom's basement, located at 15A and 15B Whispering Oaks. My mom and dad built the duplex in 1996 to have a more maintenance-free home with city amenities as they approached retirement. They built the duplex so they could continue to provide care and oversight for their son, who sustained a head injury. It's located in the Whispering Oaks subdivision. Over the last 5 years, sewage has backed up into my mom's residence 3 times, each time to varying degrees. On the previous 2 occasions, the city has reimbursed 100% of the submitted expenses for cleanup and physical damage and assured us that the drains would be routinely maintained to prevent raw sewage from overflowing into my mom's basement. The first incident was on December 29, 2013, and resulted in cleanup and damages of $3,825.56. The City of Washington paid this entire amount. The second occurrence, which was a much lesser event, happened on March 13, 2015. There were minimal expenses for property damage and cleanup. The city reimbursed all the submitted expenses of $270. On June 10, 2018, the city's malfunctioning sewer drain caused the third incident, resulting in significantly more damage than prior occurrences. If the members of the City Council are interested, I have copies of payments and correspondences from the prior 2 events signed by City Clerk Mary Trentman. The damage caused by the June 10th backup was much more extensive, the raw sewage covering roughly 50% of the finished basement. We have kept notes on the most recent incident, and I'm going to quickly summarize the order of events that has transpired. So Sunday, June 10th, 2018, 4 p.m., my mom discovered raw sewage backing up into her basement. The tremendous odor was so strong we could smell it from the driveway. 4:20, I called the police department. They contacted the Public Works Department to report the incident. 4:45, on further inspection of the constant flow of sewage into my mom's basement, I discovered sewage flowing under the basement walls, through the exterior doorways, and into the backyard. I have several pictures of this. The sewage appeared to be running across the backyard and down into the creek, which leads into Bushes Creek. 3 employees from the 5:45 p.m. 3 employees from the Public Works Department arrived at my mom's residence. I took them to my mom's basement to see the sewage. They inspected 2 sewer drains, which are in a nearby neighbor's yard located at 11 Whispering Oaks. The drain in the backyard appeared to be functioning properly. Ultimately, it had no impact on the raw sewage backing up into my mom's house. The drain in the front yard was covered with a considerable amount of soil, landscaping rocks, leaves from last fall, and a concrete lawn ornament. The markings on the top of the manhole cover seemed to indicate that the cover had not been removed or disturbed in quite some time, as evidenced by photos I took that day. In conversation with the neighbor who resides at 11 Whispering Oaks, she indicated she had not been aware of the existence of a manhole in the front yard. Furthermore, she commented that while she had seen city workers from time to time on the manhole in the backyard, she had never seen anyone from the city working around the manhole located in the front yard. When the cover of the manhole in the front yard was removed, sewage was visible up to within inches of the surface. Once the cover was removed, the Public Works employees ran a line forcing water through it to open the pipe. Immediately, the sewage coming up through the floor drains in my mom's house reversed and started to drain. City workers said the pipes were clogged with waste debris. One of the city employees said, to the best of his knowledge, the offending drain had not been inspected since he took the job, which was just over a year ago. The city workers departed at approximately 6:10 p.m. At 6:10 p.m., the family was concerned about the safety and wellness of our mom. our handicapped brother because of the foul-smelling contaminants and solid waste left behind and present in the basement. We contacted ServPro to conduct the necessary cleanup and to sanitize the soiled areas to ensure it was safe for my mom and brother to stay in the residence. ServPro arrived at the residence and did an assessment of the living quarters to determine the extent of damage. They noted that the extensive presence of raw sewage covering 50% of the basement floor. They also observed substantial wicking of raw sewage into the baseboards, drywall, and insulation. We were advised it would be necessary to remove the contaminated materials and household items affected by the raw sewage. I have pictures showing how the wicking had already started impacting the drywall, taken at 4:27 p.m. ServPro at that time started cleaning, disinfecting the basement. On Sunday, the day of the incident, ServPro removed baseboards, floor covering. They sprayed the impacted area with a disinfectant that is used to destroy the bacteria associated with sewage. They also started drying fans throughout the contaminated area. I think they left around midnight on Sunday. ServPro, this is 6/11, Monday. ServPro returned to my mom's house to begin removing drywall to a height of approximately 24 inches from the floor throughout the basement and in the areas which had been impacted by the sewer waste. They removed several household items. They also removed contaminated insulation. 6/12/2018, ServPro returned to remove the remaining contaminated drywall insulation from the residence. I called City Clerk Mary Trentman to notify her of the damage that the city's clogged sewer drain had done to my mom's house. During our phone call, Ms. Trentman indicated that she was not aware of this issue or any previous issues at this address. She requested that we provide her with a detailed written account of what happened. Since we had kept detailed notes as the events happened, I was able to provide the information she requested. On 6/13/2018, ServPro returned and completed the cleanup and removed the drying fans. My mom and I met with Mary Trentman. We shared the requested notes on the incident. 6/15/2018, I received a phone call from Juliana Lozano, who is with Travelers Insurance. It is my understanding that Travelers is the insurance carrier for the city of Washington. I returned the phone call to Travelers on the same day and left a voicemail for Juliana. On 6/18/2018, I placed another call to Juliana Lozano. At that time, I was able to speak with her, and she provided me an update on the status of the claim. She informed me that she had received the city's report, and it indicated that the line was blocked with debris such as baby wipes and grease. She also stated that the city's report indicated that the drain had been cleaned monthly, with the last cleaning occurring on May 22nd, 2018. This information was inconsistent with the information provided by the city workers who cleaned the clog and who had responsibility for the maintenance of these drains. I wondered if perhaps the report was incorrectly addressing the drain in the backyard of 11 Whispering Oaks, which apparently had been cleaned and was not the cause of the clog that caused the damages to my mom's residence. 6/20/2018, I called and left a voicemail for Mike Heidrich, city councilman for the 2nd Ward, where my mom's property is located. He returned my call later that same day, and we discussed what happened. Mark made notes so he could discuss the issue with the appropriate people at the city and said he would follow up with me. 6/22/2018, Kerry Dukes, who I believe is the water department foreman, and his crew spent approximately 3 to 4 hours inspecting the problematic drain. During that period, Kerry explained to the property owner where the drain is located and to my mom that the malfunctioning drain hasn't been cleaned out for a long time. 7/5/2018, I received a phone call from the councilman, and he reported similar information that I had already received from Travelers Insurance. He suggested that I contact City Administrator Darren Lamb to express my concerns. He also suggested that I present my concerns to the City Council in open forum tonight. July 6, 2018, Juliana Lozano from Travelers contacted me by telephone again. She said that she had a report from the supervisor of Public Works stating that tree roots were the cause of the blockage in the sewer line. Based on Mark's advice, I called City Administrator Darren Lamb and shared our issue with him. He took notes, stated that he was aware of the issue and would need to follow up with his staff. He said he would get back to me on the issue. 7/10/2018. I contacted Darren's office and left a message with his assistants for Darren to contact me. Later that same day, Darren did return my call. He expressed his concern for my mom's situation. He told me that he had additional follow-up to do with Kevin Quatham, who would be on vacation until July 23rd. We have attempted to work with city officials to resolve this issue. As it stands now, the city has denied the insurance claim for the cost of damages and cleanup caused by the city's malfunctioning sewer drain. We would also like to express our concern for the adequacy of the service being provided by the city, as it seems that the sewer drains either do not function properly or routine maintenance not being performed adequately to prevent these types of costly repairs. With this recent incident, 2 Public Works employees told us on 2 separate occasions that the sewer drain in question had not been maintained for at least a year or in a very long time. Furthermore, the homeowner where the drains are located has stated that they were not even aware of the existence of the offending sewer drain, and while they have seen city workers perform maintenance on the drain located in their backyard, they have never seen city workers perform any maintenance on the malfunctioning drain located in the front yard. This would seem to be consistent with the statement made by the 2 Public Works employees. Physical inspection of the drain in question on the day of the incident would also appear to support the position that the drain has not had maintenance performed on it in recent history, certainly not within the preceding 3 weeks. My mom has lived at the property for 22 years and has consistently paid all fees, taxes related to the provision of the city's sewer in good faith and has no alternative to any other sewer system. The connection between my mom's house and the city sewer is in good working order and is not a contributing factor to the issue that arose on June 10th. I am not aware of any options that my mom could exercise to ensure the city's sewer lines are properly maintained so they do not cause excessive cleanup costs, property damage, and potential health risk to my mom and my brother. With the information that we have provided this evening, we respectfully request that the City Council direct the appropriate parties to reimburse my mom for the cost of cleanup and property damage caused by the city's malfunctioning sewer on June 10th, 2018. Again, we want to express our appreciation and to Mark Heidrich and the rest of the City Council for allowing us to voice our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the only comment I would add to it is that I did talk to Tim on the phone about this and told him that we did want to do some little bit more investigation with regards to it, so we don't consider it closed, but as of this date, yes, our insurance company has denied the claim, but it's still under investigation. I had another conversation with John and a couple of Public Works employees. Kevin, as Tim stated, is going to be coming back next week after he gets back from vacation. That's all I have to say.
Aaron, would the backflow valve, that's something totally different? Would that have helped in this case?
It could, since, I mean, I don't know, since they've had a history of issues, I don't know if that would, but.
I mean, a backflow valve would help in any case that would have sewage backing up into a sewer. Now, is it required? It wouldn't necessarily be required, and I wouldn't necessarily even recommend it in this case because it was a very unique situation. So I wouldn't anticipate this to be an ongoing thing. I mean, I had a conversation with the same one with Darren today and our employees regarding the tree roots and things of that nature, which I have not personally went out there and taken a look at it. But even in that situation, at some point, if tree roots were the cause, which like I said, I have not seen that, at some point it would have blocked the sewer. I mean, that's the main that essentially drains the entire subdivision. So to answer your question, a backflow preventer does just that. It prevents backflow from backing up into the sewer. So I think it would have helped. The issue becomes is the homeowner would have never known that, and the sewage that he would have been introducing into the sewer itself would have still backed up into his home. Because you can't get, if the backflow preventer is operating, you can't get sewage out. So at some point, I think the situation would have still occurred even if a backflow preventer was in place.
Hold on.
Wait a minute, wait.
Hold on. Can't talk back
You have to come up here.
The other issue, and I've seen this with other clients of mine who are in the sewer business, the other problems with backflow valves is they have to be regularly maintained.
That's correct.
Because you can flush things down the sewer yourself that will stick that valve open. And you think it's going to protect you in the event of a backup, and it turns out it's stuck wide open. They have to be regularly maintained. They're not foolproof.
Typically, backflow preventers are incorporated in a residence that have like inflow from stormwater situations.
Correct.
So if you live next to a creek or something like that, when the sewer main is actually taking in stormwater, which exceeds the capacity of that main, and it happens very frequently.
And it's more of a check valve.
It's
situation.
Yeah, I mean, the definite. I mean,
My
backflow.
question is
Well-
did the insurance company give any indication why they paid two
Yeah,
claims before and then not on this one? Was there something different?
The only thing I don't know this, but like I said, I'll have to dig back in. It was not as much with, I think, and I'm sorry, Tim, you said 313 in 2015, you had $270.
The reason,
And then you had, in 12/29/17, you had another claim, and I didn't get that amount.
I'm sorry, which one?
The one from
First
12/20.
In 2013, it was $3,825.56.
So it was $3,800 back then?
Yes. Now, the second claim, I can tell you this. Fortunately, my mom had 6 boys, and so each time we were there cleaning it up. This time was much worse. And when I say you could smell it from the driveway, I smelled it as soon as I got out of my car on the street. You could smell it from the neighbors coming out of her basement. Not only that, this was solids. This was,
Yeah.
this was bad.
We got it.
The others was also as bad, I guess. It's still sewage. The difference was it didn't have the same odor, and it was more clear consistency. You didn't have that much solids. Still not something you need to be messing with, but so we cleaned it up ourselves. We weren't paid for the cleanup.
What was the,
time at all.
what was
The only other thing is that they might have, and I'm just throwing this out there without knowing, is that they might have looked at it and said, if the city wasn't maintaining that at that time or whatever, then maybe that there was some type of issue. But after the city maintains it, I'd have to go back and look in the records of why they paid it.
I can tell you on our first response from the insurance, I think they denied it the first time and then they ended up paying it, but their original response on the first letter was, since this was the first incident, they didn't feel like there was any negligence done.
Correct.
That's being the case. Well, this is the third one, actually, in just over 4 years. It's not even 5 years.
So has there been any conversation with the employees that Tim mentioned about telling him that drain had not been maintained?
Yes.
We had a discussion just to find out.
I don't know the specifics of any previous discussions, but we did talk to Carrie Duke specifically today, which is the sewer wastewater superintendent, that the manhole that Tim that was identified previously, we do inspect that manhole on a frequent basis. I don't know the exact, if it's monthly. I mean, we have different manholes we inspect monthly, bi-monthly, whatever it may be. That we do inspect that on a frequent basis, and I think Tim would, with your testimony, that you would agree with that. But the one that was identified in this specific instance with the tree roots was never identified previously to inspect.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that essentially that our employees were doing anything or being negligent in themselves. It's just we never had an issue at that specific location. And I have not specifically been out there to see it, but I think Tim even indicated that it was a buried manhole. So quite honestly.
So it is accurate that it had not been inspected?
That is the testimony that I received today. And I don't know if that
There's
counters
two
what you-
manholes.
There's 2 of them.
Right.
It's kind of
Right.
confusing. In the past, I mean, before the city even came, I went to the manhole because we always know where the problem, if there was a problem. And I already opened that manhole. There was no water, and so that had me confused. I didn't know there was one in the front yard either.
Yeah.
Neither did the people that lived there because it was buried in landscaping. But when I got the report from the insurance, she's telling me that that particular manhole was cleaned out on 5/22. And now I can't argue with her on that, but it is so obvious that's never been, I mean, I'm sure it's been open. It's never been cleaned, at least not within the last 30 days. I don't know, not Carrie Dukes, but the city employee that was there that day,
I couldn't tell. off the top of my head.
I don't know. He had told us that that is his actual, I don't know, section, whatever you call it, to maintain those lines. He said even though he did do the one in the backyard once since he started, he had never done the one in the front yard. Really wasn't even aware that, I guess, I don't want to say that it was there, but that it was to be checked. He also said that he only worked there for just a year, so. And then Kerry Dukes was out.
I think the thing is you're dealing with two different manholes and really two different situations that has the same effect, a backup in the low basement of that subdivision. So let's just say manhole A was the 2013 and 2015 backup. That is on a maintenance schedule. That is on a frequent inspection list. Now, I don't know the details of when it's being done or if we're increasing those or not. I could not tell you that off the top of my head. But it sounds to me like the manhole B, which is the cause of this one, was not inspected because there was never a need to, because the issue was resolved when manhole A was cleaned out. So
we don't. So not all the manholes
Not every
in the
manhole
city
in the
get
city get
inspected on a
That is
regular basis.
That is correct.
And sometimes the insurance company will look at it as like, they won't look at it as the city's fault because the city didn't know that that manhole was causing a problem. If the city knows it's causing a problem, we put it on a maintenance schedule and make sure that we clean it out.
Yeah, and to answer your question, no, we do not inspect every single manhole. And catastrophic things may happen. We have old brick manholes in downtown, which has caused the backups in the past, where a brick would fall out of the manhole and clog up the sewer main, and you would never know. I mean, I could inspect it in the morning and then have an issue in the afternoon. So, I mean, it is, you are chasing this, especially with staffing that we have now, it's just something we can't look at every manhole every single year, but we do know and we do identify which ones have problems, and we put those on a list, and we try to identify a procedure to inspect those. And unfortunately, it sounds like, and like I said, I have not physically been out to the site, but it sounds like in this situation, the manhole that had the issue was upstream from the manhole that we inspect. So it was kind of, I mean, I don't know, unique is the right word, but it wasn't the correct one we had an issue in.
Well, I'd like to see us do everything we can to try to get insurance to take care of that, because that's really, I don't think, their issue.
And I wanted to also say how awful how
I would
awful
love,
this sounds, and
the
I
fact
feel
that it
horrible.
gets so deep, it just runs out the back of the house.
Right.
And it's
That's a terrible
when I say
experience.
It's raw sewage. It's raw sewage. Even after ServPro was there, even though they did a great job, fortunately my mom can't smell as good as we can, but you'd go in there and you could tell it's like somebody sprayed the Lysol sort of thing. You know, it's like it's a cover-up. But and not only that, she still has upholstered furniture and stuff down there. It all has to go because it's sat in that. It's like we feel like we're just, it's the third time the city doesn't want to address it, and it's like we don't know what else to do. I do know in one of the past times that it also, fortunately, she's there when it happens, and I don't even know how she catches it as quick as she does because she doesn't go downstairs that much. I don't know if it was the first time or the second time. It actually backed up in, I think 11, and I'm not sure on addresses, but the one next to her, 17 maybe. I'm not sure. It's a rental. But anyway, but not to the same extent as what she gets. She must just be that much lower.
Correct. It's all, and I would also, I mean, and we have issues. I mean, there are public issues with public mains that have problems with their sewers. It occurs. I mean, I don't know about frequently, but it does happen. And the majority of those items occur because the sewer laterals have issues. So the laterals are owned by the property owners. So every single time that there's a sewer backup, there's a procedure that we go through. We do an inspection of the mains. We try to figure out if the mains are an issue. We work with the property owner to get the sewer issues resolved. We do our due diligence, and then we turn that over to our insurance. So it's a procedure that doesn't get turned around in a day, a week, or a month per se sometimes, while we investigatively work through these things. So I mean, obviously we want to make sure we get this resolved the right way. There is a procedure where we need to make sure that we're not, being the ones that are, that we don't take fault for every single situation.
Correct.
That we have to do our investigative due diligence. And I think that, Tim, I would hope that you would understand that going through that, you have a perspective, and so does the city, and it's trying to figure out how do we get these things resolved. And I can tell you, we're in the midst and to the end of this situation. So,
right.
I hope that would just give you some idea that these things just don't, and that's the other thing too, is like I said, we could inspect a manhole and have an issue in a half hour, just because of who knows what's going in the sewer sometimes. We had an issue not too long ago where there was a substantial amount of like latex gloves that were in a sewer line and got hung up on a joint in the sewer line, and that's on a frequent inspection list. And quite honestly, how would I ever know if somebody discards those type of materials, into a drain at that specific moment? So it's one of these things we always chase. It's just trying to figure out how do we limit the amount of risk, and that's where we're at.
Well, thank you, Tim.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for your thoroughness. So anyway, thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. Report of department heads, John?
Yes, I'll try to keep this brief. I just want to give everybody an update on Bluff Road. Today we had a pre-construction meeting on Bluff Road, which is essentially the last step in issuing the notice to proceed for the project. We had a really good turnout with all the utility companies. The contractor was obviously there. Engineer was there, so we had really good discussion about how the project was going to proceed. We are looking right now that if MoDOT can, there's a question regarding MoDOT permits placing a signal in the right-of-way that we thought we were already over, but we feel like we can get this resolved fairly quickly. You could see temporary signal work happening as soon as Wednesday of this week. That does not affect Bluff Road traffic at this time, does not affect Voss Brink traffic at this time, but it could be that the signal poles, the span wires, and those items could be going up as soon as this Wednesday. We do not want to issue the notice to proceed until we get that squared away with the contractor, because it is a 90-day contract, and we can't waste days. So once that happens, I would anticipate within the next 2 to 3 weeks of a closure of Bluff Road between Lang Drive and ME Frack Drive. There's a full depth reconstruction at that location between those two intersections. We initially thought that Bluff Road would be closed at 100 at West Link, but with some scheduling, with getting the box culverts ordered and things of that nature, and the phasing, we felt it was better to get that done more quick. So at this time, Bluff Road at 100 to Westlake will remain open for the fair. That is a change in what was initially anticipated. So keep that in mind. Bluff Road at 100 and Westlink will remain open for the fair. And we will be coordinating with all the businesses this week on letting people know how they get to their place of employment. And we actually added 2 additional changeable message signs to the project. So this whole town will be, we'll try to get everything with changeable message signs, letting people know where to go. I will be available, quite honestly, if you need me, 24/7 if you have questions. So call me. We can get a hold of people, and I will definitely update people as we go. Social media, Facebook, I know I'll be working with Greg with the paper, keeping everybody updated. We have a lot of people that utilize the industrial park that are not from Washington. I'm also going to try to reach out to New Haven's local paper. They're based out of Sullivan, just to try to give people updates and kind of get maybe a hotline to their resource. So
And we have a database of all the industries with
we do.
contacts. so
Database
they
of
can
all the
go ahead and
industries.
spread
I have
the
a
word
meeting with
to
the
them.
Missourian Thursday morning at 8 a.m. To talk specifics. At this time, Som Welding looks to be the one that is going to be the most impacted, because their entrance is kind of right in the middle of this reconstruction area. But we have a phasing plan with the contractor to service them. I would also anticipate that if you're going to work, I would not be surprised that you will be driving over base rock to get to your place of employment. So, it's going to be an active construction site, and they're going to move quick. I know they're looking at maybe paving at night, things of that nature. So we're doing what we can to speed that up. Once that portion between ME Frack and Lang is completed, or completed to where we can open it back up to traffic, we will then transition over to Bluff and close it at the ZX gas station to Westlink to get the box culvert in. When that happens, the signal at Bluff and 100 will remain green at all times. There will be no right turn lanes in the ZX. It will not occur. It will remain green at all times with free flow traffic. So I would just, once again, urge caution as you're traveling eastbound on 100 at Voss Brink, because there will be a signal in place. and we will be putting changeable message boards letting people know. I have concern of traveling motorists not being used to that for the first few days with some safety issues because of some sight distance problems. So do what you can to get the word out, and call me as necessary. Any questions?
All the industries have been contacted as far as
All,
bulletin boards?
all industries have been contacted that we will be reaching out to them as soon as we know information. Today was the first day where I can give hard dates. So this is going to move quick. So tomorrow might be a full day of calling people and sitting down and trying to get the word out. I would just urge people to follow our Facebook page.
Right.
And
So if you have anybody that's asking questions, they can always check out our emergency management director. Will probably be posting updates. We'll be doing it through the cities. I mean, it'll be constant, so.
it's just going to be a constant inundation. So.
Thank you, John. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Anybody else have anything?
Commission, committee, and board reports. Preliminary plat, Highland Meadows.
Yeah, that third one. There you go. Thank you. All right. This is a preliminary plat for, it's plat 4, number 4, Highland Meadows at the intersection of Don Avenue and the High Street extension. So Casey's gas station is located just here, and the plat that we're looking at is just south of there, south of Don Avenue, across from Casey's gas station. The applicant is requesting to add create lots 7 and 8 and extend Don Avenue approximately 128 feet, looks like there. The appropriate easements and utility easements and setbacks and everything are noted as they should be. They have submitted a cost estimate for the public improvements on this to be reviewed by our engineering department, and once that's done, they will submit a letter of credit, and then that final plat will most likely be on your agenda on August 6th is what we're scheduling for right now. So this is just to accept the preliminary plat into the minutes.
Any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion. Accept it in the minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Patke to accept this item. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
Fence in lieu of buffer yard, Farmex.
All right. So this is 2 requests back to back. I'll do the first one separately here. This is a request for a development. It's located on East 5th Street, just south, across from Dollar General and Sonic. It's more commonly known as the Stumpy property. You can see here it's currently 2 lots, and that is the next item on there is the actual subdivision. But what you see on here, the fence in lieu of buffer yard, they are requesting to eliminate the buffer to the southern side of this property. Since this property here is on C2 overlay and everything on the southern side is R1B single family residential, the code requires a 20-foot buffer in this location. And you can see that this line here is actually where the buffer would be required. In that section of code where it discusses what is required for a buffer, not only in width but also in landscaping requirements, we do get as specific as to how many units of specific types of trees and bushes you have to have in that buffer. It does say that council can recommend or can approve a fence in lieu of a buffer as long as it's opaque in nature. This did go to P&Z last week, and they did recommend approval of this to essentially, you can see this line here, to approve a fence be placed here on the southern property line instead of having landscaping and a buffer. As from staff's recommendation, I can understand that it's not from aesthetically speaking, it may not be as pleasing to the southern, the property owners to the south. However, there is a retaining wall here that the fence will be placed on top of. So it will the actual development will be approximately 10 to 11 feet below the houses here, because screened 10 to 11 feet, because there's a 4 to 5 foot retaining wall and then a 6 foot fence on top of it. So although it's not as aesthetically pleasing as landscaping, I think it does reach the intent of the code of providing an adequate screen. So we did recommend approval of this when it went to P&Z. There is, Steve Struberg is here on behalf of the applicant. There was some questions last time as to last time at P&Z approving this because we weren't sure of the use at the time, and then the next day it was announced that this is the proposed location for Schrader's new development. So if you have any questions, the applicant does have someone here on their behalf.
Were the residents notified of?
They were not, because there's actually not even an application for this. It's just a request in writing from them that they would like this fence in lieu of buffer, and we get it on to an agenda. So no, we did not notify any of the property owners.
It's when it was written specifically in the code so that the council would have that authorization to go ahead and use that for situations where you have a tight piece of property and you do not have that, I mean, if you took a 20-foot buffer yard out of it, you'd be taking a substantial part out of the site plan.
What kind of fence they talking?
Right here, 6 foot, I guess vinyl fence.
Come up.
One thing I might add too is a lot of those, I don't know how many of them, but the adjoining residents on the 6th Street side, a lot of them already have fences along that property line. So as Sal mentioned, we'd be building a retaining wall there. This fence would be above it. So we're just really adding another fence in a lot of locations where there already is one.
What is the neighboring property? Like, it doesn't look like there's a buffer behind that neighboring commercial.
The neighboring
properties,
properties, that little strip mall that,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's all zoned
There is no
commercial,
buffer.
so there's no
Zoned
reason for a
commercial.
buffer. Yeah.
Well,
Residential, though?
Well, behind it, yes, but that was put in, that strip mall was in there before the buffer yard ordinances were put in.
Yeah, there must have
Buffer
been a-
yard ordinance was like 1998, 98. I was here.
Strip mall was built like in '65. I was in high school.
Yeah.
The main reason we're asking, or the applicant is asking for this is, with the drive-through lane around the back, in order to keep also what we'd call an escape lane, so you don't get stuck in the drive-through, like, for example, Dairy Queen, where once you're in line, you can't get out. You can see by that line, if we tried to put the buffer in, it just does not make the development work.
Like we talked the other night at, go ahead.
On the north side, on those vinyl fences, so I'm sure Schrader's will keep that clean, where the neighbors won't have to worry about mold on the backside.
They'll maintain everything. They're,
First-class operation.
the Sal and Darren have talked to them, and they're looking at a very nice facility. That's the business they're in. They're gonna maintain everything.
And like we talked to P&Z the other night, there's that big swale in the back of that property that's gonna be more dense. It'll still hold more dense, for the neighbors behind.
Correct.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Steve.
So I think this just needs to be accepted in the minutes. There's no resolution or ordinance, so.
Make a motion, accept in the minutes.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Scornia to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
Preliminary plat, Farmax Plat 1.
So this is going along with the same development. Obviously, they are turning these two lots, as you see here, into one. Typically, this would just be a boundary adjustment, and they wouldn't have to do a preliminary plat or final plat. However, this Stumpy property is actually the original tract of land. It's meets and bounds. It was never actually recorded as a subdivision. And so this dotted line, red dotted line, is where they're eliminating that property line and essentially creating a subdivision here for Farmax Plat 1. And so that's what you see here. There's no public improvements required. The water and sewer is there. They obviously have access to Fifth Street. So it's a pretty straightforward final plat. There's no letter of credit or performance guarantee required.
Okay, any questions or comments? Looks like we need to accept that one as well.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
We have a motion by Patke, seconded by Pettit, to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Farm X Plat 1 in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Scornia.
Introduced by Councilman Scornia. This is the ordinance that follows the previous item. Any questions? Okay.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Farm X Plat 1 in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Pettit?
Yes.
Idrich?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
Moheski?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Sullentrup?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Waterman?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Mayor's report?
One item I need to bring up this evening is this coming Sunday, the American Bloom judges will be arriving in Washington, so they will be here. We don't know their exact time of arrival yet, but anyway, they will be judging on Monday and Tuesday. And Tuesday is the day for the luncheon at our home, so it's at noon. And I will be getting you something, but this thing kind of snuck up on me. So anyway, but I'll get you the information. But certainly it'd be great if you all could stop by that day for lunch, go to the door with the wreath. So anyway, all right. And Municipal League is this Wednesday evening at Howie Valley down in Pacific, new location.
It's this Wednesday.
So I believe it starts at 6.
Mary, will you send the address to that, please?
I will.
Thank you.
It's on the other side of the highway, above the.
It's on the north side of the road.
I thought that's where it was, but just an address would be great. Thank you.
I sent it this morning, but I'll send it again.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. City Administrator's report?
We are working on budget with department heads. Mary's given me another draft. We've kind of outlined some of the projects for the capital improvement sales tax and how that will fit into our 10-year budget. So we're working on that, but we also talked with staff, department heads this morning about performance evaluations for all employees, and one of the goals that I stressed to them that I thought that is a better customer service to our customers, we are going to try to do as many things online as possible within this next year. That's going to be a goal for us to go ahead and get that done. So for example, everything from occupancy permits to being able to apply for those, pay for those online, to renting facilities with the Parks Department, et cetera, making that as customer friendly as we possibly can. And keeping in line a little bit with that, it was raised about the Parks Office possibly looking in the space downstairs in the lower level. I talked with Darren Dunkel about that. They seem very receptive to that idea. And actually, I think it's probably going to work. So what we're looking at is possibly doing that as a target date by maybe October the 1st. And it will also help with finance so that when we have those reservations and people come in and pay for things, it'll be a lot easier for them to go ahead and go through our system as well. So just to give you a heads up, we'll be getting a little bit more in detail with regards when for the budget and some of those goals and objectives that we've got for each of the departments. That's all I have. I do have 2 items for you in executive session.
Council comments?
Any comments?
The only comment I had, I brought it up Monday to Sal at P&Z. I'm getting a lot of phone calls about this sign for this new Urgicare.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we talked about it, and it's in the size of
Yes.
the ordinance that we have now. So maybe this is something we need to draw back on and look at this and maybe revise something. Myself, I feel like it's overpowering. You can't even see the building behind it.
I do want to mention that we have been getting a lot of calls. It is in compliance. I think they're at 237, and you're up to 250 in that district along 47. Diane Holinghausen's sign right behind it is actually bigger, and I'm not aware of any complaints we ever got about that sign. Their square footage is actually larger. I think it's just honestly the design and how it just because it looks more like a billboard.
It's the design, and that's why I asked Sal to figure out what the square footage of the one is behind it. What's that? Oh yeah,
It's really a miniature.
absolutely. Well, and you look at it, just all depends on the type of pylon sign that it is. Advanced Auto Parts down the road's the same way.
That's what I looked at too. It's the same way, but for some reason, because of the height
Yes.
off the ground, I think it makes it smaller. But this
Right.
is down lower and it's just right in your face.
Right, so I mentioned it Monday night, and I just wanted to bring it up to see if we had interest.
I mean, the only thing
Looking at this again and maybe revising it.
The only thing I could sit there and say is if you want to have some type of architectural review or put some guidelines in there for
It
future
doesn't- It
signs.
doesn't do anything on this one.
No, it's not
Right.
going to do anything on this.
Because I think after looking at it, it's clear it's not necessarily the size that we've gotten complaints on, it is the design. So, right.
So, I mean, that's up to if planning and zoning wants to bring something or the council wants to ask P and Z to look at that, they could look at some type of architectural design standards, but be careful what you ask for sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think you want to go that far. I think this is a one-time, at this point, there's nothing you can do about it, but for future, I don't know what you really could do.
It's just because.
Can we downsize it just a hair? I mean,
The way it was on the hill, it was a cluster, just how it came about, so.
I think you'd be getting the calls if it was 200 square feet.
because they had a different
My
design
opinion,
first.
but I don't know.
And then they went with that one.
They did, that's true.
They had what?
They had a different design.
They had a monument design first, and then switched it up to more of that billboard type.
The only signs that you have additional review on are in the downtown historic area.
Correct.
That goes through, that goes through the Historic Preservation
Yeah, there
Commission.
are, and those are actually, there are some mandatory review in that. You cannot have backlit, that kind of thing. You actually have to have indirect lighting downtown.
What about the density as far as the light that it puts off? Don't we have a standard on that or some sort?
They're not for that type of sign. We only do it for electronic messages that they're changing. But we do have, just for standard lighting, not necessarily for the sign code, that if it's a nuisance, we can contact them, so.
Gotcha.
But we don't have a lumen standard or anything like that at the property line. I mean, that was discussed in the past, but.
Yeah, we took that off.
Be careful what you ask for.
Anything else?
City Attorney's report. Public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, and real estate matters pursuant to Section 610.021 RSMO 2000. Pettit?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
Moheski?
Sure.
Patke?
Yes.
Sullentrop? Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Waterman?
Yes.
See you guys.
Thank you all.